The transport ship carrying Ambassador Sarah Chen glided through the massive docking bay of Nexus Prime. Through the viewport, she watched dozens of alien vessels from across the galaxy, each representing civilizations that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Earth's ship looked primitive compared to the elegant craft surrounding it, but Sarah held her head high. Humanity had earned its place here, even if the older species refused to acknowledge it. Sarah stepped onto the station with her team of 12 diplomats. The air tasted different here, processed through alien systems that accommodated 47 different species. The corridors stretched wider than any human building, designed for beings twice the size of men. Holographic signs floated in the air, displaying directions in hundreds of languages. Earth's language, Standard English, was buried near the bottom of the list. Ambassador Chen, a mechanical voice said through her translator. A Valorian delegate approached, its 6 legs moving in perfect synchronization. The Valorians ruled the council, their species having discovered faster than light travel before humans even built their first cities. You are expected in the council chamber. The vote will proceed shortly, Sarah nodded. She had spent 15 years working toward this moment, 15 years since first contact, when the council had appeared in Earth's skies and offered humanity a place among the stars. At first, it seemed like a gift. The council shared technology, opened trade routes, and welcomed Earth into a galaxy of wonders. But the gift came with chains. The council chamber rose like a cathedral of light and steel. Thousands of representatives from member species filled the tiered seating, their forms ranging from humanoid to completely alien. At the center stood the High Arbiter Velkoth, a Valorian whose age was measured in centuries. Its voice boomed through the chamber without need for amplification. We convene to address the human question, Velkoth announced. For 3 cycles, Earth has refused to sign the junior species protocols. They must comply or face consequences. Sarah walked to the speaker's platform. Her heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. The protocols you demand would cripple humanity. You want us to limit our military to token forces. You want us to surrender control of our own expansion. You want us to accept permanent second-class status in this council. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many species shifted uncomfortably. The truth made them nervous. These protocols exist for stability, Velkoth replied. Young species are unpredictable, dangerous. They must be guided by their elders. Controlled, you mean? Sarah shot back. She activated her datapad, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. I have analyzed every junior species protocol in council history. Not one species that signed them ever achieved full council status, not one. You use these protocols to keep emerging civilizations weak while you maintain your power. The chamber erupted. Some species shouted in anger. Others remained silent, their expressions unreadable. Sarah pressed on. Humanity will not accept this. We have fought too hard, sacrificed too much to reach the stars. We will be equals or we will go our own way. Velkoth's mandibles clicked together, a sign of extreme displeasure.
You dare threaten the council?
I state facts, Sarah replied. Earth will not submit to unjust laws. We will defend our sovereignty. The High Arbiter rose to its full height. Then you leave us no choice. Your defiance cannot be tolerated. It sets a dangerous example for other species. If humans refuse to accept their place, others will follow. Sarah felt ice in her veins. Something was wrong. This was moving too fast. The Council recognizes the threat posed by human rebellion, Velkoth continued. Therefore, under Article 47 of the Galactic Covenant, we declare Ambassador Sarah Chen guilty of sedition against galactic peace. The sentence is death. The chamber fell silent. Sarah's security team moved to protect her, but they were already surrounded by Council enforcers. The humans reached for their weapons, but Sarah raised her hand. Stand down, she ordered. Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. Don't give them an excuse to call us savages. Her deputy, James Rodriguez, grabbed her arm. We can fight our way out. The ship is ready. And start a war right here? Thousands of species would see humans as the aggressors. Sarah pulled away from him. I won't let that happen. Get everyone else off this station. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them the truth about the Council. Sarah, they're going to kill you. I know, she smiled sadly. But maybe my death will open more eyes than my words ever could. Get them home, James. That's an order. The Council enforcers dragged Sarah away. Her team shouted and struggled, but more enforcers appeared, forcing the humans back toward their ship. James watched helplessly as Sarah disappeared into the depths of the station. In her cell, Sarah had 1 hour to wait. The council broadcast executions across all member worlds. They called it justice, but Sarah knew the truth. It was theater. A message to anyone who might think of challenging the established order. She recorded a final message on her personal device, knowing the council would eventually release it. Her hands shook, but her words were clear. My name is Sarah Chen. I represent Earth and humanity. The Galactic Council has sentenced me to death for speaking truth to power. I don't regret my words. I don't regret standing up for my species. If you're watching this, if you're human, remember this moment. Remember that we tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We tried to work within their system. But some systems cannot be reformed. Some injustices cannot be tolerated. Whatever happens next, know that I died free. I died speaking truth. And I died believing that humanity will never bow to tyrants, no matter how old or powerful they claim to be. The enforcers came for her. They led her to the execution chamber, a vast arena where billions across the galaxy could watch. Felkoth stood at the center, its voice echoing. Let this be a lesson to all who would defy the Council's wisdom. Chaos must be met with order. Rebellion must be met with justice. Sarah Chen stood straight. She looked directly into the cameras broadcasting her death across the stars. She thought of Earth, of blue skies and oceans, of humanity's brief but brilliant history. She thought of all the species watching, some celebrating, some uncomfortable, some seeing this for what it truly was. The energy beam struck her before she could speak again. Light years away, on Earth, Admiral Marcus Webb watched the broadcast in the war room beneath Geneva. Beside him stood the military leaders of every human nation. They watched in silence as their ambassador died. When the broadcast ended, Webb stood slowly. His face was stone, but his eyes burned with cold fire. Gentlemen, he said quietly, initiate Protocol Omega. As of this moment, Earth is at war with the Galactic Council. Not for months, not for years, forever. They wanted to teach us our place. Now we'll teach them why humans never learned to kneel. Alarms began to sound across the Sol system. In the Kuiper Belt, automated shipyards came online, beginning production of vessels designed for one purpose. Hidden bases revealed themselves. Sleeper agents activated. The machine of human warfare, built in secret over 15 years of mistrust, awakened. The Council thought they had executed one troublesome ambassador. They had no idea they had just started a war that would reshape the galaxy forever. A war humanity would never stop fighting. A war with no end and no surrender. The forever war had begun. The emergency session of Earth's United Government began 3 hours after Sarah Chen's execution. Every nation sent its leaders to Geneva. The meeting room held presidents, prime ministers, and generals from every corner of Earth. Through the windows, the sun was setting, painting the sky blood red. Admiral Marcus Webb stood at the head of the table. He had served in Earth's military for 40 years, fighting in the last of humanity's internal conflicts before first contact. He remembered when humans only killed other humans. Now they faced something far larger. They murdered our ambassador on live broadcast, Webb said. His voice was calm, but everyone in the room could hear the rage beneath. They did it to humiliate us, to show every species in the galaxy that humans are weak, that we can be killed with impunity. The president of the Pan-African Union slammed her fist on the table. We must respond. If we do nothing, we admit they were right about us. We will respond, Webb assured her. He pressed a button and holographic displays filled the room. For 15 years, we have been preparing for this possibility. We hoped it would never come. We hoped the Council would accept us as equals. They have made their choice. Now we make ours. The displays showed secret military installations throughout the solar system, hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, weapon platforms disguised as research stations, underground factories on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Humanity had been building an arsenal while pretending to be peaceful. Protocol Omega, Webb continued. We designed it the day after first contact. We studied every species in the Council. We analyzed their tactics, their technology, their psychology. We found their weaknesses. A Chinese general leaned forward. What weaknesses? They have ships that can destroy planets. They have weapons we barely understand. They have something more dangerous, Webb replied. They have peace. The Council species haven't fought a real war in thousands of years. Their conflicts are ritualized, governed by rules and honor codes. They fight like it's a game. He paused. We will not play by their rules. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's chief military strategist, stood up. She had spent her career studying human warfare throughout history. The Council expects conventional warfare, fleet battles, territorial exchanges, negotiated peace. They expect us to surrender when the costs get too high. That's how all their wars end. This war will never end, Webb said flatly. That's the point. We will fight them forever. We will never negotiate, never surrender, never stop. Even if it takes 1,000 years, we will make them regret what they did to Ambassador Chen. The room fell silent. The weight of that decision settled on everyone present. They were condemning their children and grandchildren to eternal war. The Russian premier spoke carefully. Forever is a long time, Admiral. Can we sustain that? Can we afford not to? Webb shot back. If we accept this, we accept that any time we displease the Council, they can kill our people. We become slaves in everything but name. I say no. Humanity did not claw its way to the top of Earth's food chain to bow to aliens who think age equals wisdom. Votes were cast. The decision was unanimous. Earth would go to war. The first strikes happened simultaneously across 12 systems. Council military outposts, chosen for their strategic value and symbolic importance, came under attack. The Council had expected warnings, demands, perhaps a few skirmishes. Instead, human ships appeared out of nowhere and unleashed hell. Captain James Morrison led the attack on the Valorian outpost in the Kepler 442 system. His ship, the Retribution, had been built specifically for stealth. Council sensors couldn't detect it until weapons were already firing. All batteries fire, Morrison ordered. Missiles streaked toward the outpost. The Valorians scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. They had been at peace for so long they had forgotten what real violence looked like. The outpost exploded. Morrison watched it burn, feeling nothing. He had served as Ambassador Chen's security chief for 3 years. He had been ordered off Nexus Prime while she was executed. The guilt ate at him every day. "Sir, Council reinforcements incoming," his tactical officer reported. "Jump to secondary position," Morrison replied. "Execute hit-and-run pattern Delta." The Retribution vanished before the Council ships arrived. This was humanity's new doctrine. Strike fast, strike hard, and disappear. Don't hold territory. Don't fight fair. Just inflict pain and leave. Across the galaxy, similar attacks played out. Human forces targeted supply convoys, communications arrays, and isolated military units. They avoided major fleet battles. They refused to engage on the Council's terms. The Council's response was confused and slow. They sent diplomatic messages demanding humanity cease hostilities. The messages went unanswered. They threatened sanctions. Humanity had already isolated itself economically. They promised forgiveness if Earth surrendered. Earth's response was broadcast across every Council world. Admiral Webb's face appeared on billions of screens. The Galactic Council executed Ambassador Sarah Chen for speaking truth. They thought her death would silence humanity. They were wrong. For her death, we will wage eternal war. We will never stop. We will never surrender. We will fight until the Council that murdered her is dust and the galaxy remembers that justice matters more than age. This war will not end in our lifetime. It will not end in our children's lifetime. It will end when the galaxy is free or when the last human draws their final breath. We have made our choice. Now live with the consequences. The message terrified the Council. They had dealt with angry species before, but those species had eventually calmed down and negotiated. They couldn't understand a species that would choose permanent war over temporary peace. On Earth, the mobilization continued. Billions volunteered for military service. Factories converted to weapons production. Scientists worked around the clock to reverse engineer and improve Council technology. Humanity had always been good at learning from its enemies. The Diaspora Protocol activated next. Millions of humans boarded colony ships and scattered to hidden worlds throughout the galaxy. These settlements were top secret, their locations known only to Earth's highest leadership. If the Council somehow destroyed Earth, humanity would survive. The species would continue fighting from 1,000 different worlds. Dr. Tanaka explained the strategy in a briefing. "We're not trying to win quickly. We're creating a forever war. Every human colony is a backup. Every ship we build is one more the Council has to destroy. We're making ourselves impossible to eliminate." Young soldiers trained in tactics the Council considered dishonorable. Ambushes, false surrenders, Attacks on civilian infrastructure, psychological warfare. Everything was permitted because this wasn't just war. It was survival. One recruit asked his instructor, "Why fight forever? Why not negotiate peace?" The instructor, a veteran of Earth's last war, looked at him hard. "Because peace with the Council means accepting that they can kill us whenever we displease them. It means living on our knees. Some things are worse than war, son. Slavery is one of them." 6 months into the war, the Council controlled less territory than when it started. Human raiders struck everywhere and nowhere. Supply lines collapsed. Trade stopped. Fear spread through Council space. High Arbiter Velkoth convened an emergency session. How is this possible? They are one species. We are 47. Our technology is superior. Our fleets are larger. A Valorian admiral tried to explain. They don't fight like civilized beings. They strike from hiding. They attack the weak and flee from the strong. They ignore all conventions of warfare. Then we will destroy Earth itself, Velkoth declared. Without their homeworld, they will lose the will to fight. The fleet that jumped into the Sol system was the largest ever assembled. 3,000 Council warships appeared in Earth's orbit, ready to glass the planet. They broadcast a final demand for surrender. Admiral Webb replied personally from the defense station above Earth. "Come and try." The battle lasted 3 days. Earth's hidden defenses revealed themselves. Weapon platforms thought to be asteroids opened fire. Thousands of automated drones swarmed Council ships. Human vessels darted in and out, hitting and running. The Council fleet retreated, having lost a third of its ships. Earth survived, battered but intact. More importantly, humanity had proven it could defend its home. The Council could not end the war quickly. It would have to fight for years, decades, maybe centuries. In the aftermath, Admiral Webb stood on the observation deck looking at Earth below. Whole cities had been destroyed in the battle. Millions were dead, but humanity had won something more valuable than lives. It had won the right to keep fighting. Was it worth it? An aide asked quietly. Webb thought of Sarah Chen standing proud before the Council. He thought of her final message. He thought of every human who had died defending their right to be free. "Ask me in 1,000 years," he replied. "This war is just beginning." 5 years had passed since Ambassador Chen's execution. The war that the Council thought would last months had become a grinding, endless conflict that consumed entire sectors of the galaxy. In a command center on Mars, Admiral Webb studied tactical displays showing the current state of the war. Red zones marked Council territory. Blue zones showed human-controlled space. The purple areas were contested, changing hands daily. "We're holding," General Lisa Rodriguez reported. She had been promoted from captain to general in just 3 years, a testament to both her skill and the heavy casualties humanity had suffered. The Council offensive in Sector 7 failed. "We lost 2 colonies, but we destroyed 8 of their supply depots." Webb nodded. The math was brutal but simple. Humanity couldn't match the Council ship for ship, so they didn't try. Instead, they made every Council victory worthless and every Council loss permanent. The Council could take a planet, but humans would make holding it impossible. Human forces would strike supply lines, assassinate governors, and turn the local population against the occupiers. "What's the count?" Webb asked. Rodriguez pulled up the statistics. Council military casualties are approaching 80 million. Ours are at 30 million. But our population is growing faster. Every hidden colony adds millions of potential soldiers. The strategy was working, but the cost made Webb sick. 30 million humans dead in 5 years. That was more than all of Earth's wars in the 20th century combined. And this was only the beginning. A young officer approached nervously. "Sir, the Council is broadcasting another peace offer. Terms? Same as always. Complete human disarmament. Council oversight of all human colonies. War crimes trials for our leadership. And one new addition. Mandatory genetic monitoring of all humans to ensure we don't develop further." Webb laughed bitterly. "They still don't understand. Show me the response protocol." The response was always the same. Earth would broadcast Ambassador Chen's execution on every Council frequency, followed by a simple message. "This is why we fight. This will never be forgotten. There will never be peace." The psychological impact on Council species was devastating. They were used to wars that ended. Conflicts had beginnings, middles, and endings. Treaties were signed. Peace was restored. But humanity offered no path to peace. Just endless grinding war. Captain James Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, now renamed the Eternal Vigilance. He had spent 5 years raiding council space, and his crew had become legends. They called him Morrison the Ghost because his ship appeared and disappeared like a phantom. Target identified, his sensor officer reported. Council transport convoy carrying medical supplies to Valorian Prime. Morrison's second-in-command hesitated. Sir, medical supplies? Are we really going to hit that? What do you think those supplies are for? Morrison asked coldly. They're treating Valorian soldiers so they can kill more humans. Everything is a target, everything. The Eternal Vigilance attacked. The convoy's escorts were destroyed within minutes. Morrison let one transport escape to carry word of the attack. Fear was a weapon as effective as missiles. After the battle, Morrison sat alone in his quarters, looking at a picture of Ambassador Chen. She had believed in diplomacy, in reason, in the power of words. He believed in none of those things anymore. The galaxy only understood violence. I'm sorry, he whispered to the picture. You deserved better than this. We all did. On Valorian Prime, the Council's homeworld, High Arbiter Velkoth faced a crisis. Multiple Council species were demanding an end to the war. The economic damage was catastrophic. Trade had collapsed. Entire sectors were too dangerous for civilian ships. Some species were considering leaving the Council entirely. We must crush them, Velkoth insisted. If we show weakness now, the entire Council will fall apart. Korzal, a young Valorian military commander, disagreed. With respect, High Arbiter, we cannot win this war. Not as we're fighting it. The humans have no center to strike, no leader whose death would end their resistance. They are everywhere and nowhere. Then we genocide them, Velkoth declared. We find every human world and burn them all. We've tried, Korzal replied quietly. We've destroyed 12 human colonies. Each time the humans respond by destroying 30 of our outposts. And we still don't know where most of their colonies are hidden. We could kill 1 billion humans tomorrow and 1 billion more would continue fighting. The meeting ended with no resolution. The Council was trapped in a war it couldn't win and couldn't end. The siege of Valorian Prime began in the war's 6th year. Human forces, led by General Rodriguez, didn't invade the planet. Instead, they surrounded it. Thousands of automated mines made approaching the planet suicidal. Human ships patrolled constantly, destroying any vessel that tried to break the blockade. They're starving, Rodriguez's tactical officer reported. Food shipments can't get through. The Valorians are eating through their reserves. Rodriguez felt no satisfaction. This was simply necessary. The Valorians need to understand helplessness. They need to know what Ambassador Chen felt in her cell. Waiting to die. Maintain the blockade. The siege lasted 6 months. Valorian Prime didn't starve completely. Some ships got through. But the psychological impact was devastating. The rulers of the Council, the species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia, were prisoners on their own homeworld. When humanity finally allowed supplies through, it came with a broadcast. Rodriguez's face appeared on every screen on Valorian Prime. This is what powerlessness feels like. This is what it means to be at someone else's mercy. We could have killed you all. We chose not to. Remember this mercy because it's more than you showed Ambassador Chen. And remember that we can do this again anytime we choose. You are not safe. You will never be safe. Not until you dismantle the Council that murdered an innocent diplomat. The broadcast ended and human forces withdrew. They left the Valorians shaken and afraid. The invincible Council suddenly looked very vincible. Korzal studied the human tactics obsessively. He began to understand something his elders refused to accept. Humans weren't fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for a principle. The idea that individuals had rights that even the powerful must respect. He wrote a secret report analyzing human warfare. They do not fight as we do. They fight as though every battle is personal. As though every soldier carries the ghost of their fallen ambassador. This is not an army. This is a species that has weaponized grief and turned it into strategy. We cannot defeat an enemy that measures victory not in territory gained, but in principles defended. The report was buried. The Council's leadership refused to accept that they might be wrong. Meanwhile, humanity's doctrine of eternal war evolved. They developed the Hydra strategy, named after the mythical monster. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more were built. For every colony found and destroyed, 3 more were established in hidden corners of the galaxy. Dr. Tanaka explained the strategy to a group of officers. We're not trying to win quickly. We're making ourselves immortal as a species. The Council can hurt us, but they can never eliminate us. And as long as we exist, we fight. A young officer raised her hand. Ma'am, doesn't this mean we're condemning our descendants to eternal war? Yes, Tanaka replied without hesitation. But we're also ensuring they have descendants. If we surrendered, if we accepted the Council's terms, we might have peace. But it would be the peace of slavery. Our children would live on their knees, always knowing that defiance means death. I choose war. The officer nodded slowly, understanding the terrible logic. In the war's 7th year, something unexpected happened. 3 smaller Council species announced they were withdrawing from the conflict. They didn't join humanity, but they refused to keep fighting. The Council's unity was cracking. Webb watched the announcement with grim satisfaction. It's working. The Council is eating itself. Should we offer them terms? An aide suggested. We could negotiate with the species that want peace. No, Webb said firmly. We don't negotiate with anyone. The Council is one entity. Either the whole Council surrenders or the war continues. No middle ground. No exceptions. But sir, we could end this war sooner. Webb turned to face the aide. This war will never end. That's the point. The moment we accept anything less than total victory, we admit that Ambassador Chen's murder was acceptable. It wasn't, it will never be, and we will never stop reminding the galaxy of that fact. In a small apartment on Europa, Catherine Chen prepared for deployment. She was Ambassador Chen's daughter, now 25 years old. She had joined the military on her 18th birthday, the day after her mother's execution. For 7 years she had fought in the war her mother's death had started. She looked at her mother's picture one last time before leaving. I'm going to the front lines, Mom, Sector 15. They say it's brutal out there, but I'm not scared. I know why I'm fighting. You taught me that principles matter more than safety, that some things are worth dying for. She touched the picture gently. I miss you, but I promise your death won't be in vain. We'll fight forever if we have to. The galaxy will remember Sarah Chen. They'll remember that humans don't forgive. Humans don't forget, and humans never ever kneel. Catherine Chen shipped out the next morning, one of millions carrying her mother's legacy into an endless war. 20 years after the execution of Ambassador Sarah Chen, the galaxy barely resembled the ordered civilization that had condemned her. The Galactic Council, once the undisputed authority over 47 species, was fracturing. In a secret meeting chamber on the neutral world of Sanctuary 7, representatives from 23 species gathered to discuss the unthinkable, leaving the Council. Ambassador Threx of the Kalthari spoke first. His species had been Council members for 3,000 years. We cannot sustain this war. Our economy has collapsed. Our young people refuse to fight. They ask why they should die for Valorian pride. Others nodded in agreement. A Quellan representative stood, her forearms gesturing in frustration. The humans will never stop fighting. 20 years of war, and they are stronger now than at the beginning. How is this possible? Because they believe in what they're fighting for, Threx replied quietly. They fight for justice. We fight because the Council tells us to. There's a difference. The meeting ended with a historic decision. 23 species formally withdrew from the Galactic Council. They didn't join humanity, not yet, but they refused to keep fighting a war they couldn't win and didn't believe in. The announcement shocked the remaining Council members. High Arbiter Velkoth, now ancient and bitter, addressed the diminished Council. This is treason. Those species will be punished. Korsal, now a senior military commander, spoke carefully. With what forces, High Arbiter? We barely have enough ships to defend our core worlds. The humans have spread across 1/3 of the galaxy. We cannot even map all their colonies. Then we ally with those we can trust, Velkoth declared. The loyal species will form a stronger council. But everyone in the chamber knew the truth. The council had lost. Not in any single battle, but in the long, grinding war of attrition. Humanity's strategy of eternal war had worked. On Earth, Admiral Marcus Webb was now in his 80s. His hair was white, his face lined with decades of stress. But his mind remained sharp and his dedication to the war never wavered. He stood before the United Government to give his annual report. 20 years ago, the Council murdered one of our ambassadors. They thought it would make us submit. Instead, it started the longest war in galactic history. Today, we control or contest 40% of known space. 23 former Council species have withdrawn from the conflict. 8 species have actively joined our cause. The Council is crumbling. The President of the Americas, a woman who had been a child when the war started, asked the question everyone was thinking. Admiral, should we offer peace terms? We've proven our point. Webb's response was immediate and harsh. No, we have not proven our point. Our point is that individuals have inalienable rights that even the powerful must respect. The Council has not acknowledged this. Velkoth has not been held accountable for Chen's murder. Until the Council that killed her is destroyed completely, the war continues. But Admiral, the President pressed, entire generations have grown up knowing only war. Don't they deserve peace? They deserve justice, Webb replied. Peace without justice is just another word for surrender. We fight not because we enjoy war, but because the alternative is accepting that might makes right. I will not accept that. Earth will not accept that. And as long as I command our forces, we will never accept that. The government voted to continue the war. The vote was closer than in previous years, but it still passed. Humanity would keep fighting. In the contested regions of space, a new civilization was emerging. Humans and their alien allies established what they called free zones, regions where Council law no longer applied. These zones operated on principles inspired by Ambassador Chen's final speeches: equality before the law, protection of individual rights, and democratic governance. Catherine Chen, now a colonel, helped govern one of these free zones. At 45 years old, she had spent her entire adult life at war. She stood before a diverse crowd of humans and aliens all living together in the new settlement. My mother died because she spoke truth to power, Catherine told them. She said that all beings deserve respect and dignity. The Council killed her for that belief. But look around you. Humans and Valorians, Kelthari and Quellans, species that were enemies now working together as equals. This is my mother's real legacy. Not the war, but the idea that justice matters more than tradition. In the crowd, a young Valorian named Sela listened carefully. She had been born during the war, never knowing the peace her parents remembered. She had grown up hearing stories of human brutality, of their endless aggression. But living in a free zone, she saw something different. She saw humans who worked alongside Valorians as equals, who treated everyone fairly regardless of species. Sela approached Catherine after the speech. Colonel Chen, can I ask you something? Of course. Why do humans keep fighting? You've won. The Council is broken. Why not stop? Catherine looked at the young Valorian with sad eyes. Because the Council still exists. Because High Arbiter Velkoth, the being who ordered my mother's execution, still lives free. Because if we stop now, we're saying her death was acceptable. It wasn't. It will never be. But you're punishing my entire species for what one Valorian did. No, Catherine replied firmly. We're punishing the system that allowed one Valorian to murder an innocent diplomat without consequence. Your people are welcome here in the free zones, but we will not stop fighting until the old Council is dust. Sela understood, even if she didn't like it. This was a war of principles, not of hatred. In the remnants of Council space, a revolution was brewing. Younger Valorians, those who had grown up during the war, began questioning their elders. They read Ambassador Chen's speeches, smuggled in from human space. They studied human philosophy and government, and they started to wonder if the humans might be right. Korsal led this quiet revolution. He had risen to become supreme commander of Valorian forces, but he no longer believed in the cause he defended. In a secret meeting with other reformers, he spoke plainly. We were wrong, about everything. The junior species protocols were unjust. Ambassador Chen spoke truth, and High Arbiter Velkoth committed murder. The humans are right to never forgive us, then what do we do? Another Valorian asked. We cannot surrender. Our pride won't allow it. Pride is what started this war, Korsal replied. Pride is what keeps it going. And pride will destroy us if we let it. I say we remove Velkoth and sue for peace. The humans won't accept peace. They've said so for 20 years. Then we give them what they want, justice. We put Velkoth on trial for murder. We dismantle the Council that enabled him. We build something new, based on the principles Ambassador Chen died defending. The conspiracy spread quietly through Valorian society. Officers, politicians, and ordinary citizens began to agree. The old way had failed. Something had to change. The coup happened swiftly. Korsal and his supporters arrested High Arbiter Velkoth and the Council's leadership. There was minimal bloodshed. Most Valorians were tired of war and ready for change. Within days, the old Council was gone. Korsal broadcast a message to humanity. I am Supreme Commander Korsal of Valoria. We have removed High Arbiter Velkoth from power. He and his co-conspirators will stand trial for the murder of Ambassador Sarah Chen. We acknowledge our crimes. We acknowledge our injustice. We seek peace. Admiral Webb watched the broadcast with his senior staff. For the first time in 20 years, there was hope for peace. But Webb's expression remained hard. Opinions? He asked his staff. General Rodriguez spoke first. It's a trap. They're trying to divide us. Maybe, Webb acknowledged. Or maybe they're serious, Dr. Tanaka. The strategist studied the broadcast carefully. Commander Korsal has a reputation for honor. He's one of the few Valorians who publicly questioned the war. This might be genuine, but is it enough? Webb asked. They offer a trial. They offer to dismantle the council. But do they offer true justice? Catherine Chen, attending the meeting via hologram, spoke up. We should demand more. Trials for all who participated in my mother's execution, reparations, and a complete restructuring of galactic governance based on equal rights for all species. Webb nodded. Draft those demands. Send them to Korsal. If he accepts, we'll consider a ceasefire. Not peace. A ceasefire. We'll see if they're serious about change. The message went out. The galaxy held its breath, wondering if 20 years of war might finally end. Korsal received humanity's demands. They were harsh, asking for what many Valorians would consider humiliation. But Korsal understood something his predecessors hadn't. Sometimes justice requires humility. We accept, he broadcast simply. All of it. We will face justice for our crimes. We will pay for our mistakes. We will build a new galaxy together. For the first time since Ambassador Chen's execution, the guns fell silent. Not permanently, not yet. But for the first time, there was hope that the eternal war might someday end. In her quarters, Catherine Chen looked at her mother's picture. We're not done yet, Mom. But maybe, just maybe, we're getting close. Your death meant something. It changed everything. I hope you can see that wherever you are. The war continued, but its nature had changed. Now it was a race to see if justice could be achieved before the cycle of violence consumed everyone. 50 years after the execution of Ambassador Sarah Chen, Admiral Marcus Webb lay dying in a hospital on Mars. He was 112 years old, kept alive by medical technology but finally succumbing to time. Around his bed stood the leaders of Earth's military, including General Catherine Chen, now in her 70s and supreme commander of all human forces. Webb's eyes were clouded, but his mind remained clear. A young reporter had been granted a final interview, and she asked the question everyone wanted answered. Admiral, you've spent half a century at war. The Galactic Council is gone. New governments have formed based on equal rights. Was it worth it? The millions of dead, the decades of suffering, was it worth it? Webb was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, but everyone leaned in to hear. They killed one of us to teach us our place. We fought forever to teach them we have no place but the one we choose, yes. It was worth it. But the war continues. The reporter pressed. Skirmishes still happen. People still die. When does it end? When the galaxy remembers, Webb replied. When every species knows that justice cannot be killed with a weapon. When the idea Ambassador Chen died for is so deep in galactic culture that no one would dare challenge it. That day hasn't come yet. Webb died 3 hours later. His funeral was attended by millions, both human and alien. Even former enemies came to pay respects. Whatever else could be said about Marcus Webb, no one denied his dedication. Catherine Chen delivered the eulogy. She stood before a crowd that stretched to the horizon, her voice carried by broadcast to every human colony and many alien worlds. Admiral Webb never wanted war. He wanted justice. When forced to choose between peace without justice and war with principle, he chose principle. Some call that stubbornness. I call it integrity. He kept a promise to my mother that her death would mean something, that it would change the galaxy. Look around you. Humans and aliens standing together as equals. New governments based on rights, not power. A galaxy where Ambassador Chen's ideas are the foundation of civilization. That's Admiral Webb's legacy. That's what 50 years of war bought us. She paused, looking at the assembled crowd. But the war isn't over. It may never be over. Not because we're bloodthirsty, but because we refuse to forget. Every generation of humans must remember what happened to Sarah Chen. Must remember that justice requires eternal vigilance. The moment we stop fighting for it, we risk losing it. After the funeral, Catherine met with the leaders of what was now called the Free Coalition, the alliance of humans and 31 alien species who had rejected the old council's authority. They gathered in a conference room on Luna to discuss the state of the galaxy. "The situation is stable," reported Ambassador Threx, now ancient but still serving his people. His species, the Kalthari, had been among the first to join humanity. "Most of the galaxy has accepted the new order. There are still holdouts, species that remember the old council fondly, but they're isolated." "What about the Valorians?" Catherine asked. Corsal, now retired but attending as an observer, spoke up. "My people have changed. The younger generations barely remember the old council. They've grown up with human ideals of equality and justice. Some of them barely believe the stories of how we used to rule. That's the problem," Catherine said quietly. "They're forgetting. In another generation, they won't understand why we fought. They'll think we're just warmongers clinging to old grudges." "Then we must teach them," said a young human officer named Alex Rivera. He was the great-grandson of General Lisa Rodriguez. "Every child, human and alien, must learn about Ambassador Chen, about what she stood for and what happened to her. This can't just be human history. It must be galactic history." The coalition agreed. New education standards were implemented across all member worlds. Every student would learn about the execution that started the Eternal War, about the principles worth fighting for, about the cost of justice. But even as they built institutions to remember, the reality of eternal war continued. Skirmishes still erupted along the borders between coalition space and the territories of species who refused to join. Human soldiers still died. Alien soldiers still died. The war had become a permanent feature of galactic life. On a border station in Sector 22, a young soldier named Marcus Webb III prepared for patrol. He had been named after his great-great-grandfather, though he had never met the admiral. He was 20 years old and had enlisted immediately upon finishing school. His squad consisted of humans, Kalthari, and even 2 young Valorians. They joked together as they checked their weapons, comfortable in their diversity. This was normal for Marcus's generation. They had never known a galaxy where species didn't work together as equals. "Why do we still fight?" One of the Valorians, a female named Vela, asked during a quiet moment. "The council is gone. The Valorians who executed the ambassador are dead. Who are we fighting?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "We fight the idea that killed Ambassador Chen, the idea that some beings matter more than others because of their age or power. That idea still exists in parts of the galaxy. As long as it exists, we fight, but couldn't we just leave them alone? Let them believe what they want?" "No," Marcus replied firmly, "because ideas spread. If we allow the idea that power equals right to exist anywhere, it will eventually spread everywhere. My great-great-grandfather understood that. That's why the war is eternal, not because we hate anyone, but because we refuse to let an unjust idea survive." Bella nodded slowly. She had been taught the same lessons in school, but hearing it from a human descendant of the famous admiral made it more real. Their patrol encountered a small raider group from one of the holdout species. The fight was brief but intense. Marcus took a laser burn to his shoulder. Vela killed an enemy who had Marcus pinned down. They were evacuated together, both wounded but alive. In the medical bay, Marcus looked at Vela and smiled. "Thanks for saving me." "Kind of ironic, right? A Valorian saving a web," Vela smiled back. "That's the point, isn't it? We're not enemies. We never should have been. The war taught us that." "The war is teaching us that," Marcus corrected. "It's not past tense. It's ongoing. Present tense. Forever tense." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Former enemies fighting side by side for shared principles. Humans and aliens dying together for the idea that all beings deserved equal treatment under law. The war had transformed from a conflict between species into an ideological struggle. In the Free Coalition's capital on New Terra, a planet jointly settled by multiple species, Catherine Chen gave her final speech before retirement. She was 85 years old, ready to pass leadership to a new generation. "I was 17 when my mother was executed. I'm 85 now. I've spent 68 years fighting. I'm tired, but I'm also proud. When my mother died, she died alone, speaking truth to a council that didn't want to hear it. Today, billions of beings across the galaxy live by the principles she articulated. That's victory." She paused, looking at the young faces in the audience. But victory doesn't mean the war ends. It means we're winning. There's a difference. The war ends when every being in the galaxy accepts that justice matters more than power. That day may never come, so we may fight forever. And that's okay, because some things are worth fighting for forever. Catherine retired to a small house on Earth, the planet her mother had died defending. She spent her days writing memoirs and teaching young students about the war's origins. She never complained about the life she'd lived or the father she'd barely known. Killed in the war when she was young, she had chosen this path with open eyes. One day, a Valorian student came to interview her. The student's name was Sarah, chosen by her parents in honor of the human ambassador whose death had changed everything. "Do you hate us?" young Sarah asked. "The Valorians, I mean. For what we did to your mother?" Catherine considered the question carefully. "I hate what was done. I hate the system that allowed it, but you? No, you weren't born when it happened. You've grown up in a galaxy shaped by my mother's principles. You're proof that the war worked. But people still call it the never-ending war. Doesn't that bother you?" "Never-ending sounds negative," Catherine replied. "I prefer eternal vigilance. We remain vigilant eternally because justice requires it. The moment we stop being vigilant, we risk sliding back into the old ways. So yes, we fight forever. But we fight for something beautiful, the idea that every being matters." Young Sarah wrote her report, and it became required reading in schools across coalition space. The interview captured what the war had become. Not a grudge match between species, but a civilizational commitment to principles. 100 years after Ambassador Chen's execution, the galaxy had settled into a new normal. The Free Coalition controlled most of known space. A few isolated regions still refused to join, clinging to the old hierarchical ways. Border skirmishes continued. Occasionally, these escalated into larger conflicts, but they always died down, only to flare up again later. The war had become part of galactic culture. Every species had its own traditions around it. Humans held annual remembrance ceremonies for Ambassador Chen. Valorians performed rituals of atonement for their species' historical crime. Kalthari wrote songs about the eternal struggle for justice.